Sirens wailed over the Emirati port of Fujairah as Iranian missiles and drones slammed towards a key oil facility, igniting fire and shattering the illusion that a shaky US-Iran ceasefire could hold. Remember, this was Iran's first major strike on the UAE since the truce between Tehran and Washington was announced on April 8th. Not only this, but simultaneously, tensions flared at sea. US forces said they launched a new operation in the Strait of Hormuz using helicopters to hit what they describe as hostile Iranian fast boats threatening commercial shippings. Iranian state media, however, accused Washington of attacking civilian cargo vessels and killing innocent crew members, turning the narrow waterway into a fresh flashpoint of competing claims and growing anger. Now, with these two major escalations, one thing is clear, that the ceasefire between the United States and Iran is under severe strain. But the bigger worry is that the risk of wider regional war has sharply increased. So today in this edition of From the News Desk, we will break down for you what happened in the Gulf in last 24 hours, and does it mean a full-scale war is coming soon between the United States and Iran. Now, as per UAE officials, the latest escalation began with fresh wave of Iranian missile and drone strikes on the petroleum industrial zone in the UAE, a critical hub that allows the Emiratis to export oil without sending every barrel through the Strait of Hormuz. Emirati officials said the barrage triggered a fire at the oil complex, with emergency teams rushing to contain the blaze as images of smoke and flames spread across the social media. According to UAE authorities, Iran launched a combination of cruise missiles and drones, with at least one projectile failing into the sea while others were intercepted by air defenses. Despite most of the incoming threats being shot down, debris and blast effects still caused damage on the ground, underscoring how even successful interceptions can fail to protect civilians and infrastructure completely. In fact, Abu Dhabi's foreign ministry condemned what it called renewal unprovoked Iranian aggression, describing the attack as an unaccepted assault on civilian sites and facilities, and importantly, a direct threat to the UAE's security and territorial integrity. Officials also warned that the strikes violated international law and said the country reserved the right to respond to protect its sovereignty and the safety of residents and visitors. Now, Iran, for its part, has said they had no pre-planned program to attack the oil facility in question. And what happened was the product of US military's adventurism. Crucially, this very strike comes after weeks of Iranian attacks across the UAE during the broader war, in which missiles and drones have repeatedly been aimed at US-linked bases, energy infrastructure, and urban areas in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. The Fujairah raid is being described by regional media as the first such hit on the UAE since the ceasefire between Iran and US was announced, fueling fears that the truce is collapsing. While the Iranian missiles were flying towards UAE, the United States was again flexing its military muscle in the Strait of Hormuz. US Central Command says its forces carried out a new operation targeting Iranian fast boat it claims were maneuvering aggressively and threatening commercial shipping lanes. American officials also insist the vehicles were IRGC linked, part of the Mosquito fleet of small heavily armed boats that Iran has used for years to harass tankers and naval ships. Iran, however, tells a different story altogether. State media outlets report that the US helicopter struck non-military cargo boats traveling between Oman and Iran, alleging that several civilians were killed. Tehran also accuses Washington of committing piracy and state terrorism at sea, portraying this entire incident as an attack on ordinary traders rather than a legitimate strike on military targets. Now, this clash comes on top of weeks of maritime brinkmanship, during which Iran has deployed swarms of small fast attack craft, missiles, drone and naval mines to pressure shipping and challenge US attempt to reopen the strait. Now, remember, President Donald Trump has previously ordered the US Navy to shoot and kill any vessel laying mines and has threatened devastating strikes on Iranian infrastructure if Tehran refuses to fully reopen Hormuz, raising the stakes of every encounter on the water. Now, among those caught in the Fujairah attack were 3 Indian nationals working in or around the oil complex, who suffered moderate injuries when fire and debris spread through the facility. In fact, the Indian embassy in UAE confirmed that the three were hurt in Monday's strike. Now, New Delhi's response was swift and very sharp. In a statement, India's Ministry of External Affairs called the attack unacceptable, stressing that any strike that injures Indian nationals or targets civilian infrastructure must stop immediately. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reinforced that message personally in a post on X, condemning the Iranian strikes on this very oil facility that injured three Indian nationals and declaring that targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure is unacceptable. He also said India stands in firm solidarity with the UAE and again backed a peace negotiated resolution to this very crisis, emphasizing that safe navigation through Hormuz is vital for regional stability and global energy security. Remember, the stakes for India are enormous. Over 4 million Indians live and work in the UAE, forming one of the largest expatriate community in the Gulf and sending vital remittances back home. Now, taken together, Iran's decision to hit the UAE again and the deadly confrontation over boats in Hormuz suggests that the US-Iran conflict is sliding into a new, more volatile phase rather than moving towards a stable ceasefire. The Fujairah strike is being widely seen as a direct challenge to the US-backed truce arrangements, while Washington's attack on alleged IRGC fast boat sent a clear signal that it is prepared to use force to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Now, analysts also warn that the ceasefire agreed in early April was always a fragile one, and reports of continued attack on Gulf states, even during the truce, have raised serious doubts about its durability. Every incident at sea or over Gulf infrastructure now carries the risk of misreading, overreaction, and accidental escalation, especially when both sides present incompatible narratives about what happened, as in the dispute over whether the boats hit by the US were IRGC craft or civilian cargo vessels. But at the same time, there are still strong forces pulling against an all-out war. Key regional players, including the UAE and India, continue to call for restraint, dialogue, and respect for international law, stressing both the human cost of further escalation and the dangers to the global trade if Hormuz remains a battlefield. Well, for now, the world is closer to a broader US-Iran confrontation than at any point since the ceasefire began, with missiles striking vital oil hubs, boats burning in the contested waters, and millions of foreign workers caught in the crossfire. Now, whether this moment becomes the starting gun for a full-scale war or the shock that forces all sides back from a brink will depend on the choices made in the coming days in Tehran, Washington, and key Gulf capitals.